Hello and welcome to another episode with the Quantum Woman. I'm your host, Shamina Taylor. Today's episode, we're going to talk about emotional mastery and the importance of having emotional mastery. Here are some things that I feel like when we have understood how to master our emotions, we don't care what people think about us. We are able to really show up fully in our power, be authentic, share our voice, say what we need to say, and deal with whatever comes with it. A couple of the things that I'm going to cover. This is going to be a couple of part series because it's not something I can just jam pack into one episode. You know, if someone has ever said or done something to you and they've upset you, it is definitely, their responsibility, right? And how they speak to you. But more so, it's our responsibility, how we respond to them. If we are able to take what they've, said or done and process it in a way, we can either give them a reaction or we can just have them say what they're saying and then decide how we want to respond. A lot of the times people are afraid to show up and say what they want to say and really be fully seen in their power and say what they really want to say because they're afraid people might judge them. They might judge what they have to, what they're thinking, who they're siding with, what their political parties are. Maybe they didn't like something that you liked. Having a polarizing different opinion is, something that's really hard to do because you could get canceled, right? People could jump on you like, why? How dare you have these opinions? How dare you behave this way? The thing that I teach about is mastering our emotions, because when we can master our emotions, we don't have to worry about what other people are doing to us. When you haven't mastered your emotions yet, you're going to always want to control the narrative that's going on in someone else's mind and thoughts and their opinions about you. Now, imagine if Beyonce, went around every day, or whoever, of that stature, trying to control what people thought about them. And yeah, you can control what people think about you through how you put your brand out there, your messaging. But at the end of the day, the more that you can be truthful in how you speak and what you say, the less people have to say about you, because what are they going to say? Wow, she said that. Ooh. So this episode, we're going to talk about first about you as a person and mastering your emotions. And the next one following, we're going to talk about in your business. Now, I teach mastery because I was somebody who did not have emotional mastery. Somebody would say something to me and I would literally go from 0 to 100 like that, like zoom. I remember being on a Chicago subway one time, and this woman, I don't know if she bumped into me. I can't remember what happened, but I literally was going off on her in the morning. I remember that moment because I'm like, after I was said and done, I'm like, wow, what what is wrong with you that you were able to like blow up at some stranger? Maybe I was having a bad day, she was having a bad day, but it escalated so quickly. I mean, that was like, 20 years ago. And this day and time, like, who knows what she could have been carrying, right? But because I wasn't able to control my response, I engaged with somebody else when they weren't maybe being perhaps kind or had something to say to me, or they were having a bad day, or, whatever it is. It doesn't excuse bad behavior, but we have a choice whether or not we're going to give people our power with our response. I know this sounds crazy because some people are saying right now, well, what about when my mom says these things, or my dad says these things, or my spouse says these things, or when people are just trying to dig at us? Listen, I had a parent, a father that did that over and over again. He lived to dig. And this is where I believe that this mastery came from, because people will do it to try and get a response from you. And especially if they get a response, guess what's going to happen? They're going to keep doing it because they like to irritate. There's certain people that will just do that over and over again because they, in fact, get a response from you. So the only way that we can control this is to be able to really realize what's happening in the moment. And when our emotions are really like, exploding and we're having this feeling, we want to go off on them. And this is where the mastery comes in, that you can just be able to process what you're feeling. I'm not saying to not have emotions. I'm saying go yell, scream, kick, write the nasty things down, but don't send it. I've come up with a philosophy now, like you're allowed to say all the things that you want to say, but write them in the notes, not actually in the text. I started this process with my brother because I would send him stuff, when I was upset. And his first thing was, "Did you send this yet?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "Good." He's like, "Just let's sit with it for a minute." And usually after a couple of hours, I've gone from 100 down to 50, down to 20, down to 10, down to 0, where I'm like, "Okay, well, that's I don't even care anymore. And then I'm able to assess, okay, what really upset me? Why was I triggered in that moment that I responded? In the following episode, I'm going to talk about triggers, but in this one, I'm going to talk about how we can be aware of our responses to people and how what we feel and how we communicate that emotion and what the result of it is can affect us. People who are able to, one, have emotions is a really positive thing. Having just pure anger is just showing that there's something underlying underneath the anger that needs to come out, and you're not able to process that emotion underneath. And perhaps it's locked in time, some event that's happened in your life, or you just weren't able to get emotionally in touch with yourself to feel something. So that's a deeper conversation that we'll go through. But if anger is your first thing, like say you're feeling angry, go be angry. Go be angry. When my kids and I were, when I was going through my divorce, we had the screaming tree. I remember there was a time, my kids were only 4 and 5 at the time, and we were driving down this 2-lane road, country road. They were screaming in the back. I was having a stressed out moment. I started screaming and I just pulled my truck over and I saw this big, I think it was an oak tree. It was just a really huge tree. And I'm like, "Everybody out. Everybody get out of the car right now." I'm like, "You guys want to scream?" I'm like, "Go scream to that tree. Let the tree hold the scream." And each one of us took turns just screaming. We just screamed. We all screamed together. And then we all started crying. And then we laughed. But we were able to just feel our emotions. I get emotional thinking about that time because that was a moment where my kids could express what they were feeling without knowing what they were feeling, but they knew that they were upset. It was a stressful time for all of us. And it wasn't telling them to suppress what they were feeling, but yeah, be angry. Let it out. Let's cry over it. Let's laugh over it. And then we can go talk about it later. And, I got to tell you, I've used the screaming tree a couple more times after that. I remember driving in the car and my daughter said to me, "I need the tree." And sure enough, I went and pulled over to the tree and she got out and she screamed, and she was only 4 at the time. My child now is 15 and she has such emotional intelligence and the way to express herself. And my son too. It's amazing. And as you listen to this podcast, being a mother and having your children have that emotional intelligence and being able to express their emotions, it is probably the greatest form of wealth for me. So, as you're going through this process of understanding your emotions, it's really important. And I was a woman that had a very closed heart for decades. And if you are new to my world, you're going to listen to my story. But this is usually the first sign of when a woman needs to work with me, is because I see her heart's not fully open or opened at all. She's got that armor on top, the armor protecting her from being able to feel anything out and feel anything in. In upcoming episodes, I'm going to talk about that armor, but right now I'm just going to touch on it a little bit. And when we've had any trauma or any sort of upsetness, we build this survival mode. We build a way of protecting ourselves so that we don't have to be hurt in the future. But a lot of the times when we are not masters of our emotions, that armor there is trickery. It's teaching us that we are, because we're able to numb ourselves out or we're able to block how we're feeling. Now, you're going to learn all about energy too on this podcast and how that gets affected. Women and men, but this podcast is directed towards women mostly, but women will understand that, just because you're not feeling it doesn't mean it went away. And when you stuff it down, it's actually going somewhere else and holding space within your energy field. So not processing that emotion is actually causing the trigger, which we'll talk about in an upcoming episode. So the first thing that I want you to start being aware of right now when you're going on this path of emotional mastery is identifying where you might not be responding in a way that you actually felt good. Maybe you had a subway moment where you're looking back and like, why did I flip out? Like, what was going on? Or maybe there's someone in your life that's antagonizing, that just always trying to push your buttons. And how are you trying to not give them part of your power? Because at the end of the day, it is on us. This is what I teach. Other people might believe other things, but I would rather be the person that's able to decide how I want to respond to someone's actions, thoughts, beliefs, and emotions. Even if somebody's being mean and, trying to antagonize me, I want to be able to decide how I'm going to react or respond to them. I always tell my kids when they were fighting, you can give your brother or your sister a response, or you can decide whether or not they're worthy of it. One time my kids were arguing, and my daughter said to my son, "You're so annoying." And my son looked at her and said, "No, you're being annoyed." This was years ago, and it was such a powerful observation, because yeah, she was annoyed with his behavior, not that he was being annoying. So self-mastery starts with us. It starts with us being able to tap into our emotions, being able to feel things all the way through, being able to understand every emotion that we're feeling. If you don't understand what your emotions are, it's going to be really hard to express your emotions and not just get angry and jump off, or react. Being able to say, you know what, I was feeling sad in that moment. I was feeling shame. I was feeling hurt. I was whatever that emotion is. Go download an emotional wheel. You can find them on the internet, and you can start really seeing what emotion am I experiencing? What am I actually feeling? And that's like another tip for women who start, in my world. Instead of saying, I think this, I feel this, is going to start helping you tap into, like, what am I actually feeling? All right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. There are more to come. Start tapping in. What are you feeling? And when people are, causing you to feel a certain way, let's say, where are you going to be able to step back into your power and be like, I'm, I'm allowed to have this emotion, which my daughter says all the time. She'll say, I'm allowed to feel what I'm feeling, which I love that she says that, because she was taught that. And you're right. Baby girl, you're allowed to feel exactly what you're feeling. And for all your listeners, I want you to know this, that you're allowed to feel what you're feeling. How you process it and how you express it then becomes your responsibility. And then that's when we tap into our power. So really feel in. What is it? What is the emotion you're emitting or not emitting? How closed or open is your heart? And stay tuned. We've got more episodes coming. And if you enjoyed this episode, I want you to go download my wealth meditation. It is, even if you don't meditate, it's a way that you can start tapping in to how you're feeling, how you're really expressing, because I'm going to show you how being a master of your emotions is going to unlock so much wealth for you. It is going to be your playbook and where you start from. So go to shaminataylor.com and download my wealth meditation, and connect with me on YouTube, Shamina Taylor. Connect with me on Instagram or on the Facebooks. And I look forward to really hearing from you. If you really like this episode, please share it with a friend and leave me a review. Bye for now.